Okay, so let's start today's class. So before we begin, in the previous class, if you remember, we had discussed certain character functions and then we had moved on to the string handling functions. Now, there was a bit of a problem with the string handling functions in the syntax. So later on, I'll be editing that video and I'll be uploading it halfway through. I'll be omitting the half of that video at the later part. So that half I'll be revising once again today. So let's start with the character functions. Let's just quickly revise the character functions and then we will properly start with the string handling functions from the very beginning. So as you may know, we often use we most often use the import statement to import certain packages in our program while we write the programs. So there is a package called java.lang. So this java.lang package is by default um, imported into our program whenever we write a program. So we need not write this import statement explicitly when we are writing the program, because the compiler automatically during compilation, it automatically includes this particular line in our program. So this java.lang, this lang is the name of the package. Okay, so this package contains a class called character. So we are talking about the java.lang.character class. So when the java.lang package is actually imported in our program, it's basically done using the star, using java.lang.star, which means all the classes that are inside this lang package are imported, not leaving behind any class, all the classes. So star basically means that we import everything that's inside the lang package. Okay, so this is the particularly this is the line that is automatically added by the compiler. So what it does is all the classes under the lang package is imported by the compiler into our program. So each and every program that we write, the compiler automatically includes all the classes that are defined in the lang package into our program so that we can make use of them. But we are particularly interested in one single class, so we will be talking about that class. So that class is called the character class. So it's a part of the lang package. Okay, so this is the class that we are concerned about with today. So this is a part of the java.lang package. Now remember the character functions that we had discussed in the previous class. So they were namely the functions with Boolean return types. So there were quite a few functions like this. So let me write down the functions. There was Boolean is digit, which took a character argument. So there was Boolean is letter. So let me just list out all the functions that were there for the uh, character operations. So Boolean is letter or digit, boolean is white space, boolean to lowercase boolean to uppercase, sorry, boolean is uppercase and boolean is lowercase. So these functions basically checked whether they were lowercase or uppercase, and there was char to lowercase, char to uppercase, and that's all. So these were the functions that manipulated or worked upon characters. So these were the functions that we did in the previous class. Now all these functions listed here belong to the character class that is a part of the java.lang package. So since these functions are all part of the character class, so remember when we were using these functions, we used to call them using this particular syntax. So there was SOPL. So we were directly printing out the result or the return value of these functions. So we were doing SOPLN character, which was nothing but this particular class dot and then the function name we were using. So the function name followed by a character value. So this is the general syntax. So this particular class character refers to the character class in the java.lang package. Now the function names, so the function names belong to this particular part and their respective return types are the return types of the respective functions. So the thing that you need to remember is that these functions that are part of the character class must be called using the character class with a dot operator and the function name. So this is the syntax for calling the functions that work on characters. Okay. For string, it is a bit different. So the problem in the previous class was that I had used the same syntax to work with, or rather to call string functions. So that was mistaken. So up till the character functions that had been done in the previous class, everything is fine. So I had already explained how each of these functions work. So those remain the same as it is. So as it was explained, these functions will work in that way itself. The definition, or rather calling this function, we have to use this particular syntax. So we have to use the character class with a dot operator and then the function name with the value passed as an argument. And depending on the function that we are calling, so we'll get the return type or the output of our SOPLN statement. So if we are calling these particular functions, so from here up till here, if we are calling these particular functions, we'll either get a true or a false result or a false value as an output. So calling these functions will either result in a true output or a false output. So either we'll see true in the output screen or we'll see false on the output screen, depending on the checking. So these functions basically check whether the character is a certain thing. So this checks whether the character is a digit. The second function checks whether the character is a letter. The third function checks whether the character is a digit or a letter, and so on. Whereas the last two functions that have a return type of char actually returns a character to me. So I pass a character as an argument to each of these functions, and I get a character in return after some operation done on that character. So let's say I pass a character. Let's say I pass a small letter character to lowercase. So nothing happens, no change occurs, and I get back that lowercase letter itself. But let's say I pass a uppercase letter to the lowercase function, then that uppercase letter will be converted to a lowercase letter, and I'll get that in return. So I'll discuss these two functions once more. So there are certain more things to tell about, or rather to discuss about these last two functions. Other than that, the rest of the functions above, they will remain the same as it had been explained in the previous video. So they'll work as it had been explained, and the method for calling these functions is as follows. So you have to specify the character class using a dot operator and then the function name, and then you have to pass a character value or a variable as an argument. Now let's come back to the last two functions. So so in the previous class, I had said that there are two variations. So you do not need to remember it in that way. Or rather, you could say that these two uppercase and two lowercase letters have two variations. One is defined in the character class of the java.lang package. So this particular class called char to lowercase which takes a character argument uh, as an input. So this particular function belongs to the character class defined in the java.lang package. What it does is it takes this particular character value. So let me explain with an example. Let's say I have certain values, character values, char c1, char c2, char c3, and char c4. Let's say I have these four character values stored in four different character variables. Now, when I call the two lowercase function for these particular values or character variables, what happens? Let's see what happens. So I'll just write a single SOPLN statement. I'll use that syntax to call the function. So character, which is the character class in java.lang package, the dot operator followed by the name of the class, the name of the function, to lowercase, and inside we pass on the variable as an argument. So it actually works upon the value stored in the variable. Now what will this give me as an output? So let me write down the output here. So when the variable c1 is passed as an argument to this particular function of the character class, what happens is it checks whether the value stored in C1 is uh, in lowercase letter. So as you can see, the value stored in C1 is small a, which is already in lowercase. So no changes occur, and by executing this SOPLN statement, we get an output of small a. Okay. Since it is already in lowercase, so no changes happen to it, and we get the output as it is without any change to the value. Now what happens if we have C2 instead of C1? So we have C2 as an argument to the function. Now if you look at the value stored in C2, it's capital B, which is in uppercase. On passing this uppercase value to this function to lowercase of the character class, what happens is it converts this uppercase letter to lowercase to its corresponding lowercase value. So capital V now becomes small b. So the output of our SOPLN statement on passing C2 as an argument to the function gives us an output of small b. Since this was capital B, it is converted to lowercase and we get small b as an output. Interestingly, in the previous class, as I had said, two lowercase and two uppercase functions only work on letters. So that's true, but even if you pass on digits or symbols as an argument to the function, let's see what happens. So it will not give you an error as of such. So if you pass a number to this function, so imagine lowercase and uppercase logically should only work on letters, right? But what happens if we pass a number or a symbol to it? Let's say I am passing the variable C3, the value of the variable C3. Now C3, as you can see, contains a digit. So it is not a letter. So since it is not a letter, this particular function returns the value as it is in the variable. So essentially what does that mean? So as an output I'll get 4. Since it is not a letter, I cannot work upon it, so I'll return it as it is. So that's how the two lowercase function acts when we pass digits to it, which is not a letter. Similarly, if we pass this value C4 to the function, it will do the same thing again. So C4 does not have a letter, it has a symbol, the pound sign or the hash sign. So what happens is it returns the value as it is. So if any other value, so any value other than letters, if passed to the two lowercase function, it will return it as it is. So if you pass any, once again, if you pass any other value apart from letters to the two lowercase function, it will return the value as it had been passed. So the value remains unchanged. Whatever value is passed to the two lowercase letter is returned as it is, only when that value is not a letter. In case the value is a letter, it will check whether the letter is in uppercase or in lowercase. So in case of lowercase, it checks whether it is in lowercase. If it is not in lowercase, it will convert it to lowercase and then return the value. But again, if it is already in lowercase, it will return the value as it is. So this basically works on uppercase values. So any changes, so regarding changes, it only works on uppercase values. Other than that, everything is returned as it is. Only if you give an uppercase value to it as an argument, it will change that to lowercase and then return it. Other than that, all other values are returned as it is passed to the function. Now the case is similar. So the two uppercase function is also similar to this, except that it works on lowercase letters. So what do I mean by that? So let's say this is two uppercase. The syntax to call the function is the same because two uppercase is also a function defined inside the character class. So So the syntax is as follows. Again, it works similar in a similar way to two lowercase function. So two uppercase checks whether the value is in uppercase. If it is not, it will change it to uppercase. And if it is already in uppercase, we'll get that value itself as an output. So let me write it down here. So, so I'm calling two uppercase. I hope you remember the syntax of calling this function, so that remains the same. So this I'm writing the outputs as comment lines beside the definition of each variable. So this will return capital A. This value will remain the same since it is already in uppercase. This particular value is not a letter, so it will be returned as it is, and this is also not a letter, so that will also be returned as it is. Okay, so these are the outputs. When the uppercase function to uppercase function encounters a lowercase letter, it converts it to uppercase and returns it. If it encounters anything other than lowercase letters, may be it uppercase letters or numbers or symbols, it returns them as it is. So no changes happen there. So these are the two functions, two uppercase and two lowercase, which are defined in the character class of the java.lang package. There are two other versions of two uppercase and two lowercase which work on strings, and we'll come across that when we discuss about string functions. So I hope you remember all the functions that are under the character class. So it's very important to remember. So how to identify whether it belongs to the character class or whether it is a string function? It's pretty simple. You just look at the argument that it is taking. String functions will take string as an argument. Character functions take character as an argument. Okay. So looking at the return type, you cannot determine because there are Boolean as well as character return types. So the easiest way to remember is if you see that the argument passed to the function is a character, then it belongs to the character class of the java.lang package. And if you see that the argument passed to the function is a string, rather in case of string functions, you will not see any argument because string functions directly work with the object itself. So we'll take a look at that later on. If you see a character, so just remember I'm writing it down. So in case of two lowercase and two uppercase, sorry, this will be two uppercase. So in case of these two functions, if there is a character type argument passed to them, then these functions refer to the functions defined in the character class of java.lang package. So that's how you would differentiate between the string and the character functions. So since the name of both the functions are same in case of character function as well as the string function, it is called two uppercase and two lowercase. For character also it is 2 uppercase. Again, when we are working with strings, there is another function called 2 uppercase, which has a string return type and does not take any arguments. So that's the way to differentiate. You will look at the whether the function takes an argument or not. In case of string, it will not take any arguments. In case of the character functions being called, there will be a character type argument being passed to the function. So that is how to differentiate between whether we are calling the version that is defined in the character class of java.lang or whether we are calling the version defined in the string class. Okay, the string class version does not take any arguments, whereas the character class version takes character as an argument. Okay. Now let us quickly move on to the string functions. So I'll repeat the string functions once more because the syntax definition in the previous class were wrong. So let's start again with these string functions. So the first function, I'll be just going through them very quickly because some of the functions have already been defined. The functionalities are same, only the syntax was wrong. So I'll be correcting the syntax here. So we have already studied a function called string trim. String functions are called basically with respect to the string objects. Let's say I have a string variable string s is equal to hello. So this is a string variable, or rather in general or in local terms we call it a variable, but technically it is a object. So this particular variable that we have defined here of type string is technically an object because this is a class and this is the object. So we treat them as variables. So we treat string as a data type and we treat the variable defined as a normal variable, but technically this string is a class that is defined in Java. So again, the string class also belongs to the java.lang package. Just like the character class belongs to java.lang package, the string class also belongs to that java.lang package. And the variable that we define is an object. Technically it's an object, but for simplicity we treat the string as a data type and the variable defined as a normal variable. So it basically acts like that, and it is one of the characteristics of classes. If you remember, we had learnt about the various characteristics of classes. There was one definition where it said that class acts as a user defined data type. So here the string class acts as a data type which has already been defined for us for helping us out, for making things much more simpler. So it has already been defined by other programmers. So it is a part of java.lang package. Java.lang.string is the name of the class. So this string class is a part of java.lang package, and we use the string class to define variables, and we also use certain functions defined inside the string class. So those functions are the functions that we are going to study now. So string trim is a function. So the trim is the name of the function which has been defined inside the class. So we have already discussed what trim does. It deletes white spaces from the beginning and the end of the string. So let's say I have a string like this. So string s is equal to, I have some white spaces before, then I have this string hello, and then I have certain more white spaces after that. Now on calling the actual value of the variable is not modified. So what happens is, this will not give you an error, but this gets stored in a temporary variable or somewhere which is not, you cannot retrieve that value. So basically you have to do s is equal to s dot trim for it to work. So previously I said that this was equivalent to this. So this was equivalent to this particular line, but that was wrong. So you have to explicitly write s is equal to s dot trim, and then only the modified value will be stored in back in the variable. So let's say I want, so let's just do it fresh. So let's say I have this particular string value. On calling the s dot trim function, it deletes the extra spaces, and I store that value after deleting the extra spaces in the original variable itself. Now if I print this particular value, so I'll get the string without spaces. Now let's take a look at the array representation so that it might be much more clear. So this is my original string. Now I have two spaces, then the letters, and then certain more spaces. So this was my original string in array form. Now after this particular operation, what happens is my string now becomes like this. So the extra spaces are deleted before and after this string, and I have a trimmed string. Okay, so remember, you definitely have to store this value in a variable because it returns a string value, so you have to store it in a variable, otherwise the value is lost, rather the modified value is lost. You can directly print this value using an SOPLN statement, or you could do something like this. You can store the value returned by this function into a variable and then work on that value. Okay, so that is how you define, or rather that is the syntax of trim function. Similarly, the other string functions will also be like this. So you have to store the returned value in a variable, otherwise that value is lost. So the next function that we were going to talk about was to uppercase, the string version of to uppercase. This also works in a similar way. So let's say I have a string variable, string s. Let's say I have the same value. Let's say I do not have white spaces now trailing before and after the value. So now if I do, so I'm using a different variable. I want to preserve the original value. So I'm defining a new variable s1 and I'm doing s dot to uppercase. So that's how you call this function. Now the original value is in small or lowercase letters. After calling the to uppercase function, the lowercase letters are changed to uppercase letters and the new string is stored in s1. So if we do this SOPLN S, and the very next line we do this SOPLN S1, so we'll get two different outputs. So let me write down the output here. So for the first SOPLN, I'll get the value stored in the variable s. For the second SOPLN statement, I have converted the lowercase to uppercase letters by calling the to uppercase function and stored the result in s1. So the value of s1 will be all uppercase letters of the same string value. So small h is converted to capital H, small e is converted to capital E, small l is converted to capital L, and so on. Each of the characters in the string is converted to uppercase by the function to uppercase. So that is how to uppercase works. Similarly, to lowercase does the opposite job. So let's say I have Let's have the function string to lowercase. Okay, now let's say I again have a string variable that has a string, let's say 1 2 3 4 hello. Let's say this is my string. As you can see, the string value is not purely consisted of letters. It has numbers as well as letters. What happens? Now let's say I define another string variable s1 where I'm going to store the return value of to lowercase. So I'm calling to lowercase function with respect to this particular variable. So I'm calling to lowercase with respect to the first variable s dot to lowercase. What happens? Any uppercase letters that it encounters in the string is converted to lowercase. Let's take a look at the outputs. So I'll do SOPLN s, which is the original variable. I'll do SOPLN s1, which is the modified value after calling to lowercase. Now, what do I get as an output? For the first case, I'll get 1 2 3 4 HELLO. For the first case, I get this 1 2 3 4 HELLO, so it's as it is. For the second variable, where I've called the to lowercase function, I'll get 1 2 3 4 HELLO. This is small o. Notice the difference. The to lowercase function only works on letters, as you have already heard about that. So as you have already heard me telling you before that to lowercase and to uppercase only works on letters. Other than letters, if there is anything else like numbers, symbols, so it returns them as it is. So that is what we are seeing here. 1 2 3 4 are numbers, so it's returned as it is, and the uppercase letters that were there are converted to their corresponding lowercase values. So capital H is converted to small h, capital E is converted to small e, capital L is converted to small l, and so on. So that is how to lowercase works. It just converts uppercase letters that it encounters to lowercase. This particular thing also works for to uppercase. If you give letters, if you give something other than letters to the to uppercase function, if you give it numbers or symbols, it will do the same thing. It will return them as it is and only work on the letters. Okay. So that was the two lowercase and two uppercase functions. I hope they are clear. Now let's move on to the next function. The next function that we have is called, we have already discussed this in the previous class. It's called int.length. So this is a function. Here the length function is a string function. We have another length property of an array, which is not a function but a property of arrays. So here, so I'm not going to discuss about the array property. So it's called upon arrays, but in this case, this length function of string class is called upon strings. So let's say I have a string. Let's say I'm using the same string hello. Let's say I defined a variable s dot length. So if I do SOPLN, if I print the value of n, what will I get as an output? It's pretty simple. It will count the number of characters in the string. So there are 1 2, 3, 4, and 5 characters. So it will give me an output of 5. So it just pretty much counts the number of characters in the string and returns that value as an integer. Okay, so len function counts the number of characters in a string and returns the value as an integer. Now this string could be anything. It does not necessarily have to contain only letters, because it can count all the characters. So it can contain any characters. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, dollar hash A, B, C, D, E, star. So it could be anything. It could be a combination of characters. It could be a combination of letters, numbers, symbols, etc. So what it does, len function counts each of them starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are 12 characters in that string. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So my output is 12. Remember, length starts counting from 1. Whereas in case of array indexing, indexing starts from 0. But here in this case, length starts from counting from 1. So when you will be using this particular length function and the value returned by the length function, at that time you have to make sure that you do not exceed the number of characters. So if the array indexing, so let's say this is represented as an array, so array indexing will start something like this. So it's 1 less than the length because it starts with 0. So this here is array indexing, and this is simply counting. So on counting, there are 12 characters in this whole string, but when we do array indexing, since it starts from 0, it's 1 less than the total number of characters. This will be much more useful when we talk about certain other functions that we are going to do today. So let's move on to the next function. I hope the length function is clear. It starts counting from 1, starts counting with 1 and counts the number of characters and then returns that value. Whereas on the other hand, in case of array indexing, since our count starts with 0, we have 1 less than the value returned by the length function. So this particular feature or property will be used when we will be writing programs. So you need to make sure or remember that length always returns the total number of characters. So its value is not equal to the greatest index when you arrange the string as a character array. Now the next function that we have is called char@. It has a return type of char, and this function takes an argument. So now we have come to a function in the string class that takes an argument. Previously all the functions did not take any arguments. Now we have come across a function that takes an argument. The function is called char@. As you can imagine from the name, char@ basically finds out the character given character at the location given as an argument to it. So int n will obviously be an integer number. I'll be calling this char@ function upon a string. Now let's take a look at the example, so it will be much more easier to explain. So let's say I have this particular string. One, two, three, hello. Now contrary to the length function. So let's index this according to array indexing. So I'll start by numbering it from 0, 1. So I don't know if it is visible. Let me draw an array for you so that it's much more clearly visible. So if I represent this string as an array, so I'll have 1, 2, 3, H, E, L, L, O, and the indexing will be something like this. So start from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I hope array indexing is pretty much clear to you by now. Indexing always starts from 0. So if you represent this given string as a character array, if you imagine this given string as a character array, then the character at the 0th location. So this is the whole string represented as a character array. Okay, we are imagining it as a character array. The first character at the 0th location is 1, which is the first character of the string. The character at the 1th location is 2, which is the second character of the string, and so on. Now remember this argument that the char@, function is taking. It is an integer value. This integer value corresponds to these values, or rather the index values. So these index values are basically fed as an argument to char@, function, and depending on the value that I am giving to char@, it will retrieve the character at that position and return it to me. So that is why it has a return type of char. Let's see the example. So let's say I have a character variable char ch is equal to, I'm calling the char@ function on the string variable, so s dot char@. Now let's say I want the character at the location 3. So I'll pass 3 as an argument to char@ function. What happens when I display SOPLN ch? What will I get as an output? If you normally count the values 1, 2, 3, I should get 3 as the output. But in case of array indexing, since it starts from 0, so at the third location I'll have h. So my actual output will be h and not 3. So if you write 3 as the output, that will be wrong, because when I'm representing the string as an array, the counting starts from 0 for the array indexing. That is why the third position generally refers to the fourth character of the string. So remember in the while discussing the previous function, length function, I had told you that when calling the length function, it will start counting from 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or rather 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So there are 8 characters, but in case of indexing, it is only up till 7. So if you go with respect to the length function as it counts, you will get an error when you want to determine the output of char@ function. So you will always have to consider the array indexing when you are trying to find out which character is being retrieved by char@. So any string function that does something like this will always be, the so we'll see many more functions that take integers as an argument. Those integers basically correspond to the array indexes, not just normally counting the characters. If you normally count the characters, you'll get an error. You always have to consider array indexing with respect to the string. So imagine the string to be a character array, write down the index on top, and then look at the argument that is being passed. So here 3 is the argument that has been passed. At the third location I have h, therefore my output is h. Let's say I want to extract e from the above string. So I have to look where e is. E is at the fourth position. So I'll have to write 4. So if I write 4, char at 4, the character at fourth position is e. I'll get the output e. Always remember, the argument of string functions generally refers to the array indexing form. So normally counting will not work. You have to index it in the form of an array, and then you have to actually calculate which character or which character is it referring to. So the char function basically picks out the character at the position that is passed as an argument to it and returns that character. So char 4 will take out the character at the fourth position, store it in the variable ch, and on printing ch I'll get that as an output. Okay, any value that has been defined here, rather passed as an argument to the char function, the character at that position is retrieved and stored in the variable, or directly you could display it as well. Remember, there is one important thing to remember, is that this particular value that the char function takes as an argument cannot be less than 0. So there's nothing before 0, since indexing starts from 0, so it cannot be less than 0. It can be equal to 0, but it cannot be less than 0, and it cannot be more than the length of the string. It will always be less than the length of the string. So if I count the length, let's count the length using a different color. So on counting the length, I will start counting from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now take a look at these two values. On counting, from normally counting like we usually count, so we start counting from 1, there we get the final value as 8. But on indexing, we get the final value 1 less than the counted value, so it's 7. So always remember, the maximum value that can be passed as an argument to char is 1 less than the count. So if I call length s.length, this will give me an output of 8, right? So I'm calling s.length, calling the length function on the string s, I'll get the value 8. So it will return 8 to me because it starts counting from 1. But the maximum value that the char function can take as an argument is 1 less than the value returned by s.length. So that is what I was trying to explain for so long. S.length will return me a value, but during indexing, since it starts from 0, it is always 1 less than the value returned by length. So the maximum value that char can take as an argument is s.length minus 1. Okay, the number of characters, if we normally count starting from 1, so the total number of characters minus 1 will be the maximum value that you can take. Since the maximum value is 7 here, if I give 8 to this, it will give me an error. So the maximum value can be 7. On giving 7, I retrieve O from the string, and that is how it works. Okay, so it's always 1 less than the total number of characters, the maximum value that char can take as an argument. This will be the same for the other functions that take integers as an argument in the string class. So there are certain other functions. Let's take a look at them. So there's a function called int index of. Okay, so the function is called index of. As the name suggests, you again you call this function over a string variable and you pass a character to the function as an argument. Now what will happen is, let's again take a look at an example and try to understand how it works. So string s is equal to hello. So I'm taking a small string as an example. Again, we have to consider the array representation of the string. So H E L L O. So that's our array representation. Let's also do the indexing as well. So it starts from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that we have represented our string in the form of a character array, now let's talk about index of. Index of is basically used to find the location of a character within a string. What do I mean by that? Let's say I define an integer variable int n, and then I call the index of function with respect to the string variable. So I call it over the string variable s dot index of. Inside I specify a character. Let's say I want to find a character within my, whether a character is present within my string. So I'll pass that character as an argument to the index of function. So let's see how it works. Let's say I want to find the position value of L. So I pass it as an argument to index of. Now what will this return? If you take a look at the character array representation of the string, the first time that we encounter L is at the position 2. There are more than one L's, but the first encounter or the first occurrence of the character that is being passed as an argument is returned. So the first time that we are encountering L in the string is at the second position, or rather position 2. So if we do SOP-ln, the output is 2. Instead of 3, it is 2. So as you can see, the array index value is returned, not the count. So if I counted from 1, 1, 2, 3, it should have returned technically 3, but it does not return 3 since we are not counting, we are concerned with the array indexing. So it refers to the array index, as the name suggests, index of. On representing the whole string as a character array, I'll search for the character in the string one by one. So I'll compare this with this, not a match, this with this, not a match, this with this, yes, it is a match. So the very first occurrence of this particular character that is passed as an argument, the position of that character is returned as the return value. So I find out the first occurrence of L. Okay. So s dot index of L returns a value of 2 because L, the first occurrence of L is at position 2 in the character array representation. Now let's say I give it a character that is not present in the string itself. Let's say I want to search for A. Since A is not present in the string, since hello does not contain the character A, the output will be -1. So whenever I give it a character that is not present in the string, to put it more simply, the character passed as an argument is not found in the string, the index of function returns the value -1 if it does not find the character in the string. If it finds the character in the string, then the first occurrence of that character, as you can see here, first occurrence of that character, the position is returned. But if it does not find the character in the string, and it returns -1, it simply returns -1. Index of has many variations. So this was one of the variations. Here, as you can see, index of takes character as an argument. There are other variations as well. It can take a string also as an argument. We generally do not use that, but for the sake of knowing, just say for the sake of knowing, I'm telling you this. So it can take a string as an argument. Also, it has two variations of these two. So int index of takes a character and an integer value as well. This is basically the variable name. Just to signify the meaning, I'm writing it from index. So you can either specify one argument like this here, just a character, and it returns the index of that, the first occurrence of that character. Or you could give it two arguments. One is the character that you are looking for, and the other is the starting position from where you want to start searching. Let's say you want to not start from the 0th index, but you want to start from a different index value. Normally, if you just give it a character or a string argument, it starts searching from the 0th index. But let's say you do not want to start from the 0th index, but from any other index. Let's say you want to start searching from the 5th index of the string. In that case, so let's say you want to start searching from the 5th index. In that case, you will specify 5 here as the second argument to index of, and it will start searching from the 5th index of the string. Okay. Similarly, as you can see here, instead of character, I'm passing a string argument. So this also has a similar variation. So int index of, I can pass a string and also specify where I want to start searching from. So I can specify the index from which I want to start searching from, or rather the starting index. Okay. These are the 4 variations that you need to know. We will basically be using the one that takes character as an argument. So we will be using this particular variation. The string variation will not be used that much, but we will nevertheless study how it works. So we will be using the character version, or rather the one that takes character, a single character as an argument. In certain cases, we might have to use um, the string version, but it's very rare. It depends upon the programming question that you have been given. So we will most often use the one that takes character as an argument. We'll be using both of them. So I have already explained how the one with the single argument works. So let's take a look at how the one with two arguments work. So let's say I have a string. This time I'll have to take a bigger string. Let's say hello planet Earth. So that's my string. Now let's say I want to use this particular version. So I define an integer variable. Sorry. And I call it upon the string variable s. So s dot index of, let's say I want to find the character L, but I want to start not from the 0th position. So I'm not drawing an array because if I draw it, it will take up much more space. I'm just indexing it here itself in the string 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the space, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 for the space, 13, 14, 15, 16 and 17. So that is how my indexing goes. So you can just you can also do it on your own if you write down in your copy. So start counting from 0 and then also count the spaces in between. Those are valid characters. This is how the indexing is done. Now let's say I do not want to start from the 0th position as was being done in the first version of index of. I want to start at my customized index number. So let's say I want to start from 5. Okay. I want to start searching for the character L from the position starting at 5. What happens? We will start looking. So 5, I do not find the character L at 5. Here I have P, so here I have L. So I find it at the location 7. So I return 7 and doing SOPLN gives me an output 7. Okay. So notice the difference between the two functions. Let's say I have one more integer variable int n1. For the sake of understanding, I'm calling it again with the default version. Okay, so I'm calling it with the default version, not specifying a starting point. In this case, if I do SOPLN n1 and then n, so my output will be something like this. So output. In case of n1, as you can see, n1 is equal to s dot index of L. I have not specified any starting point, so it will start counting or rather searching from the 0th location. So the first encounter that I have is at the position 2. This will give me an output of 2. Since I have found the first occurrence of L at position 2, I have not specified a starting point. So it starts searching from the 0th position, looks here, and then it finds a match at position 2. So it returns 2. Now the second SOP-LN, where n is equal to s dot index of L, and I have specified a starting position. So it starts looking from 5. Here I have a blank space, then I have P, then I have L. So it finds it at the 7th location. So I get 7 as the output. So I hope how the difference between the two functions is pretty clear. First one does not specify a starting point. Second version specifies a starting point where the function starts searching from. So it starts searching from the specified position that is given as an argument in the second case. So that is how index of works. The one that takes string as an argument, we'll discuss that in the next class. So for today, so I hope the index of function with respect to the one that takes the character argument is clear, and let's end today's class here. So we will discuss about the one that takes a string argument or a string value as an argument in the next class. So it will work pretty similarly, except there are certain differences, but those differences are not too great. So it will be similar. The working principle is similar, the logic is similar, just because it has because we are passing on a complete string, so it will work a little bit differently. So we'll talk about that in the next class, and that's all for today's class. So let's end today's class here. In the next class we'll again resume with index of, and we'll again further look into many more functions. There are few more functions left before we can move on to actual string programs.